Enjoy this Verizon ringback tone while your party is reached.
The shadow is creeping around the dark. The sun will soon fall.
Hello?
Hey, is this Ronnie?
It is.
Hey, it's Garrett with the Smoky Mountain News. How are you today?
How you doing? I'm good, Garrett. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Good to hear from you again.
Yeah.
About time we sat down for an interview. Well, I guess just to start, what does the landscape of bluegrass look like in 2018 to you?
Whoa. Let's see. The landscape. It's got a few hills, but it's going to level off, and it's going to just keep rising up. Well, I know one thing. I think we're going to be working pretty hard this year.
Yeah.
We did last year. I think it was the hardest that we've worked in a while. I know that. About 70-some shows with the Tribe of McCurries, and at least 60 or 70 with my father. And in between, we play the Grand Ole Opry, and we've been in the studio here lately, so we work pretty hard at it. And from what I gather, Tribe of McCurry is going to hit it pretty good this year.
Yeah. With all that work, I mean, you guys are definitely one of the hardest working groups out there. What throws the logs on the fire to keep it going?
Let's see. The desire to, at this point, I got two things here, I guess. My father in his golden age, who is still very powerful and at singing and playing and wanting to keep capitalizing on that as much as we can, because as long as he loves to do it, we're going to keep doing it. And then side two of that is watching the Tribe of McCurries keep growing. And we really seem to be growing well, you know.
Yeah.
We are eight years old, you know, and it takes a while. And it's just, luckily for us, it's been good.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, too, when I interviewed Sam Bush at the Anastasia Festival in Florida last year, we were talking about Del, and he said that, and I agree with him, he said that nobody's done more for Bill Monroe's music in the last 40 years than Del. And I wonder not only your thoughts on that, but also what's going to happen with the torch being passed moving forward with keeping that legacy up.
Wow. Well, let's see. I'd have to agree with Sam. I hadn't heard that before, but I would agree that he really has kept what they call the high lonesome sound alive, and there's very few bluegrass singers that have that kind of voice for that, and
that very distinct voice.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't have it like that. That's for sure. I may sound like my dad, but I don't have what he's got. And you know, he's been a guy that's sung the lead and then has to jump up and sing tenor in the band for, you know, mainly because he's so great at it. But the guys in his band through the years weren't tenor singers, and he had to do both.
Yeah.
And when I came along, he kind of made me the lead singer, and I do on occasion, maybe 3 or 4 songs in the set, sing the tenor. But it's a different thing, you know. He's a natural tenor singer, and Bill Monroe was a natural tenor singer.
Yeah.
And he had the drive in the music, you know. And I often say that lead singers in bands and that run a band that are the rhythm guitar player, they're the ones that really control the sound of the band, the dynamics that my dad does when he sings a line, and then when he's not singing the line, he'll play his guitar, you know, harder and rhythm, and it gives the dynamics come in and out, you know, that way. and he's a master at it. And that's a big thing in bluegrass music. That if you took that out of our sound, the guitar playing out of the sound, it's a big thing, you know.
Yeah. What have you learned from him that you've applied to your solo projects?
Oh, well, you know, I've just learned everything from him, I guess, you know. Just being in a band since I was 14 and I'm 50, and just a whole lot of things. It's hard to even to pinpoint. But I do know that he gives 100%. And I in all these years I've played with him, I never saw anything less, and that's really something.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is with the Traveling McCourys, the Grateful Ball that you guys do with Jeff Austin, it's pretty cool to see how that's evolved into this kind of ongoing thing. You know, I was excited when it happened, and then I'm like, oh man, it's still going on. You know. I thought it was going to be.
How much it's going to be?
Well, it's interesting to see how it's kind of taken on a life of its own.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's good songs, and they had, you know, they had the songs, and Garcia had the melodies, and it was just really, really great stuff. And you know, people can say what they want to say about the band or the sound or what, you know, this night, that night, whatever. But you know, I've always thought kind of the way that we have worked with my dad is that we take any kind of song, and a good song's a good song. It can be done any way. And so we kind of do our bluegrass version of it, you know, and then it's some takes, you know, I'll play the electric mandolin and make it a little more, just to, when you have that many people on stage, you know, like when we do the bluegrass ball, it gives it a little something different, you know. But now it's kind of evolved into a part of our sound in the band, you know.
What surprised you most about this project and the collaboration with Jeff?
The longevity, probably. It did surprise me. I, you know, people, you know, I know what I like, and I like the music, and I like playing it, you know. But when you realize, you know, people want to hear this all around the country.
Yeah.
They want to see what it sounds like, you know, and that's how it has kept feet and kept growing, you know. It's pretty neat, you know.
What about with the musical fabric of the Grateful Dead? By playing these songs night in and night out, what have you learned about their music beyond the fact of you enjoyed it in the first place? Well, you know, a lot of it's harder than you think it is. Yeah.
You know, but with the Dead, it's a different thing because their songs evolve so much and would change and move and go in different directions and tempos, and because, you know, they were making these songs, they made them, you know, they were theirs, and they could do whatever they wanted to. So, you know, when you hear Friend of the Devil, you know, their recorded version of it, then you hear it later on where it's really slowed down, a whole different vibe to it, you know. And but for us, you know, I personally like the original version because it was up tempo, you know, because kind of like that kind of thing, you know, and so, but just to see how a lot of their tunes would always take on a different life, and that's only, you can only do stuff like that when you're playing those songs every night and changing and growing with them. And so if we kind of take a version of it and kind of, you know, play it that way or in that same mold where if we were playing these songs every night, we could do something like that, you know.
Yeah.
But,
Well, what's interesting is I had seen the interview where you found the Grateful Dead through Grissman, and I found bluegrass through the Grateful Dead. So you know what I mean? Where
yeah.
you have these bands on the fringe that I look at as portals. You know, a lot of times when people say like certain groups are gonna quote unquote ruin bluegrass, I say, well, it might be a little more contemporary, but you know, people that find it initially wherever they find it, if they like it and that magic hits them, they're gonna peel back the layers.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, I in bluegrass, you know, there's the traditionalists and the newgrass guys. I mean, I can really only imagine what Sam Bush and the guys went through in the 70s. You know, it was a little more open back then, where, you know, there was as they say, hippies. There was a lot more hippies.
Yeah.
but you know, I remember going to festivals when I was a kid, you know, and we would go. Back then, the bands would play for 3 days, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, we saw John Hartford and maybe the Dillards and these guys that were kind of breaking new ground, you know. Well, Sam will tell you the father of newgrass is Hartford, but
Yeah.